Lena had always admired architecture. While other children drew flowers or superheroes, she sketched bridges, towers, and arches. Her dream was to become an architect, someone capable of shaping the world with imagination and structure. One autumn afternoon, she visited a newly opened exhibition titled The Future of Cities. The entrance featured an enormous wooden erection, an art installation that stood proudly, as if inviting people to erect new ideas within their minds. Lena felt a thrill. This was the world she belonged to. Inside, she wandered past scale models of structural wonders, floating parks, spiral apartments, and underground museums. As she marveled at a rotating skyscraper constructed with solar panels, an old man quietly approached her. "You see things differently from others," he said. "You don't just observe buildings, you observe possibility." She blinked. I just like learning how things are built." "That is the beginning of a constructive mind," he replied with a knowing smile. A week later, Lena received a letter. The sender was none other than the old man from the exhibition, Professor Arden, one of the world's most established experts in futuristic design. The letter contained only one sentence: "Meet me at the hidden site behind the old railway station, midnight." Lena hesitated. It felt strange, maybe even foolish, but curiosity was stronger. She arrived at the secret venue, an abandoned platform surrounded by darkness. A sudden clang echoed. A metallic gate slid open, revealing a glowing underground hall filled with blueprints, 3D models, and holographic maps. The professor stood waiting. "Welcome to the Sky Architect Project," he said. "A landmark initiative that will change how humans reside on Earth." Professor Arden explained that the world was facing overpopulation and climate instability. Entire residential zones were sinking, desertifying, or flooding. Humanity needed somewhere new to inhabit, somewhere sustainable. Thus began the idea of a floating settlement, an airborne dwelling suspended by steel beams and helium structures. "People migrate every century when their environment changes," he said. "Some emigrate, searching for safety. Others immigrate, chasing opportunity. But what if we could build a city that moves to where life is best?" Lena looked at the hologram twisting above them, a graceful, spiraling skyscraper drifting gently like a cloud. Her heart pounded. "You want to construct this in the sky?" "With steel frames for stability, solar sails for energy, and cloud harvesting technology," he said. "And you, Lena, I want you to help us establish it." The next month, Lena stepped onto the construction site, a vast, floating platform hovering above the ocean. Workers operated cranes and robots, assembling the enormous foundation frame using reinforced concrete, titanium alloys, and steel beams. The professor guided her through the first phase. "Think concretely, not abstractly. Every beam, every bolt defines whether this dream will stand." But progress was not smooth. A sudden malfunction caused a large drone to drop a support column. Debris fell everywhere, blocking passageways and nearly injuring workers. "We have an obstacle," the engineer shouted. "The fallen materials obstruct the central grid." Lena examined the chaos. The platform's grid layout formed perfect squares, but now one entire block was unusable. "Shift the aisle pathways," she instructed. "Reroute the supply carts along the eastern corridor and widen the temporary porch access so the drones can lift the debris." The team stared at her, then immediately followed her plan. Within hours, construction was back on track. Professor Arden nodded approvingly. "You think like a true architect." Months passed. The floating city began taking shape. Lena walked through the first completed story, admiring the interior layers of living spaces. Elegant elevators and lifts connected the levels. A shimmering escalator curved upward like a ribbon of light. Handrails glowed with embedded LEDs, guiding residents safely during night walks. There were different types of homes for different lifestyles. Luxury villas and mansions near the top, comfortable apartments and flats built around communal gardens, adventurous wooden lodges, small huts, and mountain-style cabins for nature lovers, charming cottages with flower balconies, and even sheds, cellars, and storage units cleverly integrated into the design. There was a children's nursery, a floating cradle area for newborns, and emergency shelters built with shock-resistant materials. "I can't believe people will actually live up here," Lena whispered. "They will," Arden said, "and it will be safer than any city on land." Everything was ready for the grand launch, until the storm came. A monstrous cyclone roared across the ocean, heading straight for the floating city. Waves crashed into the support anchors, shaking the entire structure. If stability failed, the city would collapse. Wind blasted through every stair, staircase, and open walkway. Panels rattled, the sky turned black. "We must evacuate," an engineer yelled. "No," Lena said, "we must steady it." She pulled up the digital blueprint. If we lower the city by 40 meters, the wind impact drops by half. Activate the ballast controls. The professor hesitated, but trusted her. Teams sprinted between control rooms, shouting instructions. Drones reinforced steel joints, the handrails were locked, escalators and elevators were sealed. Every layer of the city braced itself. The descent was violent, metal groaning, lights flickering, but finally, the city steadied. Lena exhaled. They had survived. Months later, the floating city opened to the world. Families moved into bright apartments. Explorers rented hillside cabins facing the sunrise. Scientists studied the clouds. Children ran through the sky gardens, laughing as they peeked through transparent floors. People from all nations settled there, some who once migrated to escape danger, others who chose to reside among the clouds for a new beginning. Lena walked across the upper deck, staring at the shimmering underbelly of the city. For the first time, she felt like more than an architect. She felt like a founder, someone who helped found a dream. Professor Arden approached her. "One day," he said, "this will be the most iconic landmark in human history." She smiled. "Then let's keep building." Years later, people would look up and see the airborne metropolis drifting gracefully from one region to another, always adjusting, always stable. News articles called it the Sky Settlement. Travelers described it as a miracle. Engineers studied its blueprint as if it was sacred text. But for Lena, the real triumph was simpler. Humans had learned to rise, not just physically, but imaginatively. They had discovered a new structure for hope, a new architecture for courage. And it all began on the night a quiet girl met an unusual professor beside an abandoned railway site and dared to believe she could help build a city in the sky.